Hi, today we're going to look at area, focus just on rectangles and triangles and some compound shapes today, and future lessons will build onto more harder skills such as perimeter, more worded questions and different shapes. Okay, let's get started. So first of all, basic concept, you can reduce area down to basically how many squares are inside it. So let's say here these are centimetre squares. That means every single square is 1 centimetre by 1 centimetre. So this is 1 centimetre square, which we typically write as 1 centimetre with a little 2 here for squared. You should do these areas really quickly. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares, so the area is 6 centimetres squared. This, slightly more awkward, you have half squares here. So we can do the whole squares first. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I know that every 2 half squares will make a whole square. So these two make 7 and these two make 8. So the area here is going to be 8 centimetres squared. And same with this weird shape, we count the whole squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 2 halves, so altogether I have 6 centimetres squared. So again, we're starting really basic today. Okay, on to rectangles. Area of rectangle, really easy, the easiest formula to remember. All you need to do is base times height. Okay, so for this question, the base is 2, the height is 6. Times them together, 2 times 6 gives you 12. And the units, because these are centimetres, is going to be centimetres squared. And that's pretty much as hard as it gets. There's not much more to actually do with rectangles, except that basic skill. So for this question here, you have a base of 24 and a height of 5. So you would work out 24 times 5. Okay, so I can do it by hand or with a calculator. Either way, it comes out at 120. Here, slightly different. You may have noticed these lengths are in millimetres. So that means rather than centimetres squared, it's going to be 120 millimetres squared. Okay. Quick aside, don't bother trying to change this back in centimetres squared. It's not as easy as it looks. Just leave it at the same units you've got from the question, and that will make you make less mistakes as you go on. Okay. Moving on, next formula we have is the area of a triangle. This one people tend to forget quite a lot. The main rule is, whenever you work out the area of a triangle, you must always halve your answer. You must always halve it somewhere. The formula you see is a half base times height. Okay. So for this question, my base is 10, my height is 6. So to work out the area using this formula, I would do a half times 10, which is the base, and times 6, which is the height. The way I work this out is I would do 10 times 6 first, which is 60, and then half the answer. So here my area will be 30, check my units, and it's 30 centimetres squared. Let's do a couple more. Here the exact same thing, half times the base, which is 6, times the height, which is 8. I would work out 6 times 8 first. That gives you 48, and then you want half of 48. And if you half 48, that would give you 24. Check the units again. These are in metres, so it's going to be 24 metres squared. Lastly, this is the exact same question. Occasionally try and confuse you by sort of rotating the triangle around. If you imagine I sort of spun this around, I could basically redraw it until it looks like this. So you've got 9 and 4, and this right angle is now at the bottom corner. And then it looks just like the previous two questions. So we're still the same formula, which is half base times height. And as long as both these numbers are either side of a right angle, it doesn't matter what your base is and what your height is. You'll still get the same answer either way. So let's say the base is 9 and the height is 4. Then same as before, 9 times 4 gives us 36, and we want to halve 36. And that gives you 18. Again, check your units, the centimetres here, so it's going to be 18 centimetres squared. Okay, slightly harder. Key thing is, do not forget to halve at the end. That's the main mistake I always tend to see. What we're looking at today is going to be compound shapes. There's basically where you've got two shapes stuck together, or one shape cut of another. It's not too much difficult, but it's worth going through it in some bit of detail. So here, I've got this compound shape. It's basically, you can kind of see, I've got these two rectangles stuck together. I've got one rectangle here, and one rectangle here. And to work out the area of this compound shape, all we need to do is work out the area for each smaller rectangle separately. So let's do this rectangle first. I want the base and the height, and if we look, I have a base of 3 and a height of 6. Times them together, and this will have an area of 18 centimeters squared. Again, it's really nice to write these inside the shape, so it's really clear that's the area of that shape. We do the same here. For this shape, we want the base and the height. Here, the base is 5 and the height is 3. Note for this question, we're not going to use this 8 centimeters because that represents the whole length from here to here, which we don't want. That's not the base or height for either shape. So when you work out your base and height, make sure it only goes across the rectangle you're trying to work out the area from, not any further than that or any shorter than that. Okay, 5 times 3 gives us 15, so this has an area of 15 centimeters squared. We've now worked out both halves of it. To work out the total area, we just simply add those two parts together. So 18 plus 15, if you work that out, that gives you 33, and again, do not forget your units. Okay, hope that's fairly straightforward. We'll see a couple more of these. So for compound shapes, there's basically two ways to work it out. If we look at this shape here, I've basically got one big rectangle, and then I've got a smaller shape chopped out the middle. So we're going to work out the big rectangle. That will have an area of 10 times 5, base times height, so therefore an area 50. And we want to work out the big area, and we don't want to take away the whole. And then what we're left with is going to be the shaded area. So you're going to think, I've cut out some area here, so I need to take away how much area I've cut out. So we're going to do big rectangle minus small rectangle. For the small rectangle, base times height again, is going to be 2 times 3, which gives us 6. And then we just do 50 take away 6. So therefore this shaded region in blue will have an area of 44. We then check our units, everything's in centimetres, so it's 44 centimetres squared. That takes us to this question. Here, slightly different. This one, you've basically got two shapes stuck together. So it's up to you where you want to cut it, but you want to cut it somewhere such that you form two nice rectangles. So I've got one rectangle here and one rectangle here. And then, as we did in the previous slide, we're going to work out both of their areas. So this area, we've got 2 times 4, so that'll be an area of 8 centimetres squared. Here, we want to do base times height, so we're going to do the base, which we don't actually know yet, times the height, which is 11. So let's see if we can work out the base, okay? And this is one of the harder parts of compound rectangles. So, there's always a way to do this, always to basically look for other lengths. If we look at the top, we know the whole way across, from left to right, is a total of 11 centimetres. We also know this little jutting out part has a length of 4 centimetres. So that means the difference between 11 and 4 is going to be my base, because I know that these two numbers here must combine together to give me this 11 over here. So working that out, if I do 11 take away 4, that gives me 7. So therefore my base is 7 centimetres. I can now work out this area. 7 times 11 is going to be 77 centimetres cubed. And just as we did over here, because we're combining two pieces together, we now want to add these two areas rather than take them away before. So we do 8 plus 77, and that will give you 85 centimetres squared. Okay, hope that made sense to you. My advice is, for the question, before you do anything, you want to think, has something been chopped out, like in this case, or something being added onto it, like in this case, and that tells you how you want to do it, whether you want to add or subtract at the end. Okay, I'm just going to do two more, same kind of things, but this time involving triangles. Okay. So for this question, I'm missing length. This should be 6 centimetres. So I've got a rectangle and a triangle, and I'm going to work out the area of each, and I'm going to add them together, because it's two shapes stuck together, which means you're going to add at the end. So this one, really easy. We know rectangles are base times height, so it's going to be 6 times 10, gives us an area of 60 centimetres squared. Now we've got the triangle. Hoping you remember the formula for a triangle. That formula is a half times base times height. So I'll say this 6 is my base, but I don't know the height. I want to know what this length is. And again, it's always going to be the two lengths that are either side of this right angle. So I'll look for this right angle and want the length, both sides of it, and there'll be your base and your height, even if it's been sort of twisted around in this case a bit. So let's work out this length here. It's the same trick as before. If you look back to my rectangle, we know the whole way across the rectangle was a total of 10 centimetres. Up here you're told this little section is 5 centimetres. So therefore this length here must be the difference between 10 and 5, because these lengths combined must add up to make 10. So we do 10 take away 5, which gives an answer of 5 centimetres, and that will be this length here. And now we can do half base times height. So it's going to be a half times, let's do base times height, so 6 times 5 gives you 30, and this area is going to be half of 30, which is 15 centimetres squared. Then all we need to do, because these are stuck together, because the two shapes added together, we want to add together my two areas. So 60 plus 15 is 75 centimetres squared. Okay, same idea, just using triangles now. Let's look to the last question. Here you can see I've got this big rectangle and I've got a triangle cut out of it. Because this piece has been cut out, we need to take away its area. So we're going to do the big rectangle and we're then going to minus out the little triangle. So let's work out the area for both. The area for the big rectangle is going to be base times height. So we're going to want to do 5 times 9. Working that out, that gives you 45. We then want to take away the triangle. We know the triangle is a half base times height. And we can see my base and my height are 2 and 4. Again, they're the two lengths either side of the right angle. So it's a half times base times height. If I do 2 times 4, that gives me 8. So that means the area of this triangle is going to be half of 8. So again, times the numbers together and then halve your answer. Half of 8 is 4. We can now work out the shaded area. It's going to be 45, take away 4 is 41. And again, we check our units. Everything's in centimetres, so therefore it is 41 centimetres squared. Okay, hope that made sense to you. Any questions, leave them somewhere, I'll try and deal with them. Next week we're going to look at working out perimeter, and again possibly more worded questions as well. Thanks for listening and good luck.